Today we're going to be a little bit controversial. Today I want to talk about premium spirits, or premium whiskies, and their inherent value, if that makes sense. So, first off, most premium drinks, things like Johnnie Walker Blue, Middleton Very Rare, Pappy 10, are not actually as rare as they would have you believe. For example, Middleton Very Rare is a blend. It's the best pot stills and the best grain whiskies from the Middleton distillery, so you're essentially paying a lot of money for a fancy Jameson. Which there are some of as well, like Jameson 18, Jameson 18 Distillers Edition, and some of them are really good. Like some of these like unique bottlings, like 23, 24, they're good, but that's the thing about them, is they have to be. So what I mean by this is, if I'm a wealthy businessman and I'm going into a bar and I want to spend money on my drink because I'm big and I'm important and my penis size directly corresponds to how much I have in my wallet currently, I'm going to want to spend my money on something that's expensive enough to be fancy, but also not complex or fancy enough to challenge me, if you get what I mean. Like, for example, Johnnie Walker Blue is outshone by Johnnie Walker Double Black, in my opinion, in my personal opinion. Stuff like Macallan 23, which is legitimately a prestige whiskey because it's 20 fucking 3 years old, would generally cost a little bit more, but it will probably be worth more. And the reason that things like this are expensive isn't just because of their prestige, it's also because of it could be either forced scarcity, like for example, Buffalo Trace is going up in price because, well, it's the same distillery that makes Pappy and Weller, and they kind of want to up their spirit portfolio in general because everyone follows what the Scots do. And 16 years ago, the Scots didn't plan for whiskey to be as popular as it is now. Because, so you'll look at things like Lagavulin 16, which used to be 80 quid a bottle, is now coming in at 120 if you're lucky. So it's rarity, and you're drinking for the prestige, and you're also drinking for the experience. For example, like, if I one of the rarest things I've ever tasted was Hennessy Paradis. I in my old bar, we used to do a break-even project where we would offer it back at cost price, and no one was fucking buying Hennessy Paradis because it was fucking like 325 a measure. No one's going to pay that money. But if you offer it for a slightly less price, then everyone gets to taste it, and everyone gets that experience. Everyone gets to sample something that they never get their hands on, and sometimes that's what you want. Sometimes if it's like a great occasion. I personally wouldn't drink Middleton Very Rare, unless it was free. But I have sat down with a good friend and shared a sample of Method of Madness 28, which is pricey, because of the experience of it. It was worth it for that experience. So when we look at things like premium spirits and prestige, we also have to look at how much of it there is, and which I've talked about. And when something is legitimately rare, it'll generally be more expensive, but it also makes the experience that much more important. Like, you won't really often get people who want to spend money on whiskey spending money on the ones that matter. Like, I've sold on one St. Patrick's Day, I had a big group of guys from Boston, and they all wanted the most expensive whiskey I had, and I gave them I believe it was a Mortlach 40 year for €40 a measure, and they just knocked it back because it wasn't about the experience for them. It was, we are spending money on it. Whereas like you or I, I'm on a bartender salary. I don't know what you're on. Or like, if we're doing this, we're going to sit down and we're going to savor it. It's not that whiskey is, that these prestige things are inaccessible to the regular person. They just have to be a little bit more important. And things like, well, I suppose this is my personal bugbear. Things like things like Middleton and Johnny Walker and Pappy, they kind of capitalize on that. They capitalize on they're playing to the crowd who have stupid money, but a lot of us fall into the trap of, oh cool, this is prestige, this is great, and then we buy it, and then we're like, oh, that's not as great as I thought it would be. So if you are legitimately a person who loves to try whiskies for the experience of them, don't go spending your money on, like, don't go spending your money on the big famous names. Unless it's an older one, you know? If your budget for the night is 100, don't spend that on 5 different whiskeys between you and your friends. Spend it on like 10 between you, and try more cool ones. Try ones you wouldn't look for before. Because reputation isn't everything. Sometimes you'll find the best thing you've ever had, and it'll cost you like, what, €6-7 measure. And it'll be rare, and it'll be hard to find. And be especially aware of this where Irish whiskey is concerned, because with the amount of sourcing that's going on at the moment, there is a lot of aged stuff out in the market, and it's not all, and there is a lot of similarity between it. So don't fall into the trap. Don't spend like 100 and something on a bottle of, like, don't spend close to 200 on something that's like 10 years old, because it's not from that distillery. It's from somewhere else. You've probably had something very similar to it before. Look for something unique and different that's being brought to you at a lower cost, because that's people wanting you to try their thing. That's not people trying to exploit you. But if you're on the opposite side of that, if you're like me, if you're a bartender and you have people who are willing to spend that money, go for it. Go for it. Like, the more money we get in the whiskey industry from people who don't know what they're fucking drinking, the more cool shit we're going to have for ourselves.